Hi everybody, I'm Hanukkah. This is the Moms and Crafters YouTube channel. And today I'm going to show you how to make a really cute crochet dreidel. So as you can see, this is an adorable dreidel. It can use a little bit of blocking, but that's fine. But it really is a distinctive dreidel shape. And I'm going to show you how to crochet it. Now, full disclosure, I am not a pattern writer. If you do know how to write patterns and you go through this and you're like, oh, it would be so nice to have an actual properly written pattern of this, feel free to go ahead and do that and share it with us here in the comment section of this video. Or you can email me directly and then I'll be able to sort of allow people to do it. But meanwhile, I do have a written tutorial for this as well at jewish.momsandcrafters.com. Includes step-by-step photos and includes a printable recipe card style thing that you can go ahead and print out to have for reference. So this is a really fun pattern, very easily scalable. As I record the video, I'm going to sort of explain to you where you would scale it, what you would change if you're making it larger or smaller. You can do this without the border. It actually has a bit of a more distinctive dreidel shape without the border and requires less blocking, but I did think that the border adds so much to it, so much. So I did do it with the border. This dreidel can be used in many different ways. If you make it in a little bit larger, you can turn it into a garland, string a bunch of them up. This size is perfect to sort of tie onto a little gift to use as like a gift tag, although it wouldn't be functional, but it would be decorative, really cute. What I want to do with this is actually sew it, kind of applique it with yarn onto a sweater or something like that. You could also turn it into a backpack patch. It has tons of texture. I am going to teach you how to do it in these colors. I find that this yellow is very, very easy to see for tutorials. That's why I use it a lot in my crochet tutorials, because it's just, when the color doesn't matter so much, it's very distinctive. So we're doing really non-traditional Hanukkah. I think the purple is a really cool, I believe they're complementary colors on the color wheel. And so these like deep tones, both of them, and the contrast between the light and the dark just makes it pop. So who says Hanukkah needs to be blue, silver, white, whatever? We love this purple and yellow. So I'm going to switch to overhead to do this. And definitely let me know in the comments if you have any questions as we go along, or if you have any ideas what else we can do with this. I mean, I was also thinking headbands. If we make it a little smaller, it's a little harder to scale down, but you could skip the border and then it will automatically be smaller. So let's go ahead and make this.
I'm going to try to keep this dreidel in view while we work. This is a 4mm crochet hook, number 7. And this is number 4 worsted yarn from Red Heart Yarn, just a regular Super Saver yarn, the cheapest thing you could find. We're going to be making our slip knot. Now I'm going to sort of preface this by saying that I'm a crafter who crafts. I am not a professional. I really am not. I always hesitate if I should share these ideas, but I know that there is not that many ideas out there. And if I have an idea, I should share it. Sorry, there are not that many Jewish ideas, especially. But specifically with crochet, I feel like, if you can do it better than me, awesome, great. If your technique is better than me, awesome, great. I'm still going to share my idea with you. So again, if you're a beginner crocheter and, and this is contrary to what you've been doing, don't necessarily switch over to my technique. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to chain 3 foundation chains. So your slip knot is never considered one of them, just so you know. It was a question I had when starting out. Sorry, I am going to have some slipping off of the hook because I don't crochet well away from my face, but I have to do that for tutorials. So that was 2, and now we have 3. So now we have 3 foundation chains. Now we're going to skip the one that's right next to the hook, and we're going to single crochet into the next 2. We're basically using single crochet for this whole thing. And chains are, just obviously instrumental. We do a little bit of slip stitching later on. So here we go. That's 1 single crochet into the first foundation chain, and a second single crochet into the second foundation chain. One of the reasons I yarn over like that instead of grabbing it with a hook, just FYI, is because I get tendinitis. So the more I move my wrist, the worse it gets. So I try to avoid that, and I tend to yarn over with the other hand. So yeah. Now we're going to chain 1 turning chain. Now we're going to increase because we're making a dreidel. We want it to get wider. So we're going to do 2 single crochets into these 2 chains. You skip the one closest to the hook right over there, the first single crochet that's right over there. And you do into the next 2 single crochets. We're going to do 2 each. The first one will actually be a little bit harder to find in the beginning of our project. Sometimes our single crochets are harder to find. But once we put 1 in, it'll actually be easier. So don't get intimidated if the first one's very hard to find. The second one will actually be easier because you're defining it. So we yarned over once, yarned over twice. Now we're going back into that same single crochet opening, yarn over once, yarn over twice. Now we're going to go into the next one, and this one is actually going to be quite tight over there. I hope you can see it clearly on my work. There we go, we got it in. Yarn over once, yarn over twice. Now we're going to do the 4th stitch for this row, back into the same single crochet, yarn over once, yarn over twice. And then we're going to do 1 turning chain. So we have 4 chains from the previous row. I mean, obviously 5 because we skipped the one closest to. And in this row, we are going to increase again. So you're going to increase in the 1st and last stitch of the row. So you're going to single crochet twice into this one, obviously skipping the single crochet closest to the hook. So we're going to do 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet. That's number 1 on this row. Sorry, I tend to pull my hook out when I'm not working up against my face. So that was number 1. Now we're going to go into the same single crochet and do once and twice. So we just increased. The next 2 we're going to go into once. So you have a total of 6 single crochets in this row that you're making. Sorry. Once and twice. Sorry, so that was 1 single crochet. Now in number 3, we're doing again 1 single crochet. And then in the last one, again, it's a little bit tight, but it's going to be easier on the second one. There, we got it. We're doing 2 single crochets in this one to increase. So that's 1 single crochet and another single crochet. So you can see that that nice little rounded point of the dreidel is starting to form. Now, this is kind of like the basic technique of doing a triangle, but with a triangle, you might start a little pointier. Here, I purposely started not as sharp a point. Now, at this point, you are going to want to start redoing each row. Instead of just increasing every row, you're going to increase every other row. So if you're making this larger and you want to, sort of follow my pattern, this is the point where we pivot to that. We're going to do 1 turning chain. And in the next row, we're going to single crochet into every single one besides for the one closest to the hook. So this is actually really 7 rows of single crochet, as you can tell, because we're not counting the turning stitches in all of these like chatter. So we're going to 1. You can see I'm keeping my tension pretty tight to really stay true to the shape. 2, 3, 4, 5. It's really hard to find without pulling it up to my face. And 6. And let's not forget the turning crochet, the turning chain. All right, so this row was 6. So we did 2 6s in a row. Now we're going to follow that up with 8. So we're once again going to increase in the first and the last one for a total of 8 stitches. So we're going to skip the chain closest to the hook. We're going to single crochet 1, and then in the same opening, single crochet a second one. Now we're going to go on to the next stitch, and in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to single crochet 1. So that's number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6. And now in the last stitch of the row, we're going to crochet 2 more for 8 total stitches. Sorry, for 8 minus the turning one, of course, but we're counting how many we're doing. 1, and in the same hole, 2. All right, now we're going to chain 1 to turn, and we're going to do 8 single crochets, 1 into each. So you can follow the pattern here. After the initial bottom, we are doing each count twice. 2. 1 turning chain. And could you guess what we're going to do next? Now you could reshape it as you go along if you'd like, but you don't need to. Now we're going to do 10, increasing in the first and the last stitch once again. So we're going to do, in the first one, we're going to do 2. And the next we're going to do 6. And the next 6 we're going to do 1, I meant to say. All right, we have 1 more, and we're going to do 2 in that one. That's going to be a total of 10 stitches. So now we're going to chain 1 to turn, and we're going to do 10 stitches, 1 in each one. All right, so we're going to do a turning chain. Now we pause for explanation. So you can see that we've made the bottom of our dreidel, this part. Now, the thing that we would continue doing is just going up. But here's where, our last one was 10. We did 10 the increasing row and 10 the stable row. Now to go straight, we're just going to continue doing 10s. I believe I did 8 rows here. I'm not positive, but it doesn't really matter because you're going to use your visuals. You're going to see, it's going to depend on your attention. You're going to want it to be roughly the same height as the sort of bottom portion, the triangle. The square part is roughly, a bit taller than the circle part. So, the triangle part. So, you just do it however much you want. 8 is a good number if you really need an exact count. But if you're going to want to increase it, you're going to now do an increase 12 and then increase, and do another row of 12 and then increase to 14, then do another row of 14. At the point where you're satisfied, you're going to, just go straight up with the same number. And then I'm going to show you how to obviously decrease to that, because you can't decrease, naturally. So here's the thing. I can't guarantee you that it'll scale up like that. I do think it will scale up beautifully because I tried this a few times, sort of just getting the pattern right. But one of the reasons I started going straight here was because it did look very visually satisfying here. So at some point you might feel like it's not increasing enough. You might have to increase 2 stitches on each side. You're going to have to see and play around with it and experiment for yourself if you do want to increase it. So we did our turning chain, and now we're going to go and do 8 rows, 8 additional rows, I believe. I'm going to, again, clarify in the video, of 10 stitches. And once you've done that first, sort of extra more than what you've done before, you should see it starting to straighten out here. Again, you can sort of like pull it as you go along to force the shape. It will form naturally to a degree, but you definitely can help it. All right, so we've done a total of 7. We've done 7 additional rows, so it's 8 including the one following the increase. It's just that gets confusing because I do delineate that point, because if you want to do it larger, you do want to define which one is which. I think I did do a turning chain because I want a nice sharp corner there. And then we're going to do something interesting. So we're going to skip the first one and we're going to slip stitch. We want to put our thing in the center. So to get there, we're going to slip stitch. Now, because we have 10 stitches, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But we want to kind of define where the center is. So what we're going to do is, and we want it a little wider than 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch 1. Now slip stitch, you're going through right through both. You're not really building it up much at all. 2, 3, 4. And now we're again going to increase into the next 2. That way our row starts larger. So we're going to go into the next one, and we are going to single crochet 2 into this one. So that was 1. That was 2. Now the truth is there are so many different ways you could do this, and depending on how many you have, how wide across it is, you'll need to adapt it. And some of them you could skip the increase. And I realized also, like, maybe I'm slightly closer to that side because of the turning one. So I could have done it 1 stitch sooner and just done 3, but I do like the look of 4. So we're just going to do it this way because it worked out well the way I did it. And then we're going to increase and do 2 single crochets in the next one as well. Now, here's where it might get a little bit confusing from what you're used to. We're not continuing down the row. We're ending the row there. We're going to get back to it later. And we're going to do a turning chain, and we're going to single crochet. So I'm going to count again after each of these rows. So we're going to single crochet 1 into each of the next 4 stitches. I did lose track a little bit, so I'm going to have to go back and count because I was talking while I was doing it. So we're going to chain 1 to turn. And yeah, so that's 4. So you can see it's going out a little bit, but you don't really have to worry about that. It's going to like sort of settle. So once again, I kind of want to count, so I'll just do it in the other row. So that was 1 after the point where we sort of created that row. That was 1 after turning. And now we're going to do, once again, a single crochet into each. Turn. Okay, so it was 3 rows. I'm going to do 1 more because you can see that's where we, slip stitched, and we want to end up on the other side so that we could finish it off. The reason I'm counting on the other side here is just because when I write the pattern, I want to make sure I have all the rows correct. I need to remember this. It's my own notes. So we turned. Now we're going to do 1 more row of 4 single crochets across the top. By the way, I always like visualize as I start a row how many I have in that row, especially with small projects, just because I find that it makes it much easier to know I'm going into the right stitches, starting off in the right point. And don't worry if this is a little bit jagged. It just is a reality of this. It'll look a little bit more than on some other rows. It's fine. Trimming it out definitely helps with that, but you don't have to. And there we go. All right. So now to finish this off, what we're going to do is, just to make sure those 2 rows are even, we're going to slip stitch down the side. Just go into the space between each row. You should have about 1. Sorry, sometimes I forget to slip stitch because I'm so used to, it's like muscle memory. 3 and 4 down the side. And then we're going to go into that corner over there just to, define it better. And now we're going to go along the edge, and we're going to slip stitch into each, just to finish off the row even with the other one. So that does sort of create a border. And 4. All right, and we're going to pull that out, trim that. Where are my thread scissors? Okay. And now your dreidel is complete. So you can see this could sort of lean in the direction that you worked it. So you could definitely rework that. And this is a beautiful dreidel, and you can leave it with a border or without. So we're taking our border color. And again, we're starting specifically at the point. So what I do is I first pull this through like this and pull this through. So we do usually like just knot that on like that. So that's how we attach it. So now we're going to start the single crochet, in, yarn over and through, yarn over and through, and that was 1. Now on the point, you do want to do 2 because you need it to sort of have more yarn there. You're going to do another one at the end because this is a very sharp point. And so you're going to be doing 2. You're going to be single crocheting between each row. Now, honestly, I don't count this. You could count it if you want. I just sort of follow the rhythm of finding the space between each row. When you get to corners, you want to do an extra one inside that corner one. That's the general rule of thumb. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, it looks like it's too deep in. It's fine. That's what creates this beautiful sort of in stitch. And that'll create that beautiful sort of internal, stitch like that. So that was the corner one. Sometimes you can't tell until after you've done it if that's really the corner. So we're going to go again into that one to give it more space to go around the bend. And then we're going to continue. All right, so that was a corner one. So we're going to do a double. The truth is, I have a feeling we would get a sharper corner if we do a third one. I'm scared to do that on camera now because I'm sort of filming the tutorial. Now, when you get to a top portion, you really kind of do. Actually, we'll do a third one in these corners. Let's see how this comes out because I feel like I need it to turn. All right. When you get to like the tops of stitches, you really do want to go into stitches. However, since this is a very, very tight, chain, we're going to continue going in between stitches because it's just too hard to get in there. Again, if you want to, you can, but we're going in between, as you can see, because we want to be able to get in. All right, now over here is kind of where it gets a little confusing. You do want to go one more here to sort of reach into that corner. And here it gets even more confusing. You want to go to there. This is sort of like where I would say at the border, doing the border gets a little bit trickier. Again, not crazy, but you have to sort of like, to some degree, have your eyes open and not just follow my instructions. You have to work with what your project is. All right, and it looks like that was a border one. Sorry, a corner one. So we're going to do a second one. Now again, if you do a third one, you're going to get this much sharper corner. So if you want that sharper corner, you could do a third one. I don't think that the tip requires it as much as it did before. And we're just going to continue for consistency, even though this is single crochet, to go in between the slots. That way we get the same, nice stitch in between the stitches. I actually went inside. No, yeah, I think I might be going inside the stitches. All right, let's find the corner there. It's very, very tight here. I worked very, very tight here. And that we're going to double. And here, once again, because we slip stitched around the edge, it is quite tight. You can see that this is the side that we slip stitched down the side. So you'll just have to find that spot in between the stitches. By the way, this is why I didn't want to thread in my ends earlier. It's because it's so much harder to find those spots in between if you have random threads that were threaded in between. We're going to go into that tight spot. And then we're going to continue. And from here on in, it's going to be a little more straightforward. And that's going to be our corner. So we're going to go 3 into this one because we did a sharper corner. Let's do 2. And then 3. And then it's going to be pretty straightforward just between each row. So the top of the dreidel was definitely the hardest part to do the border. If you do manage to catch this in the right spot, it'll be much easier. You could just sort of weave it in around under your stitches by running it under the border, but we'll just weave it in at the end. Don't forget to do 2 at this corner as well. All right, so we've reached back to our point, and here's the point. We're going to single crochet because we only single crochet twice in that one. We're going to single crochet one final time, and we're going to slip stitch it through that first single crochet. All right, so we slip stitched, and now we are going to pull that tight. And again, you know, if you want it less pointy at the bottom, you could do fewer. Wow, it's amazing how my tension is so different when I'm doing this on camera and when I'm doing it in real life, especially with the border. Here we go. And now we're going to weave in all our ends. We're going to just sew them in. All right, so we've woven in our ends, and you can see the shape is a little bit wonky, and that is because we just need to block it. Stretch it a little here, stretch it a little there. The structure is there to get the shape that you want. So go ahead and do that, refine your shape. I don't know why my back came out so bad, my border. For some reason, my tension was off, and I do not like filming these things. I don't like doing it on camera. So here we go. Here is our dreidel, and here is our other dreidel. And the truth is that you can really sew these back to back. They really came out quite accurate. You can sew these back to back to make kind of like a plush dreidel and stuff it in. It won't be a 3D plush, but there we go. Our crochet dreidel is complete. If you enjoyed this video, if you have any other ideas or feedback on the process, feel free to drop a comment as long as you're respectful. I always take feedback and advice and, you know, sort of tweaks on my processes. So feel free to do that. We definitely need to block this, as I've said. You know, you attach it to a pin board and sort of wet it and then pull it in the directions you want to pull them into to refine your shape. I have a serious problem, and that is that I just can't control myself. And that is why instead of going ahead and making the next craft, I instead sewed this using a blanket stitch, which I did not record, but it's pretty simple, and stuffed it and turned it into a bag charm. So move aside the boo-boos. Now we have dreidels. Such a cute idea to do with this, but you don't have to stick with it. And now if I want to applique something onto my t-shirt, I will have to do a new one. And that is all. I hope you enjoyed. Happy Hanukkah. Drop pictures, send me pictures, tag me on social media at Inspiring Jewish Motherhood if it's on Instagram, or email me Menucha at momsandcrafters.com with your photos. I love seeing what you've done.